All right, let's see if this is working. So if anybody can say something, if it's working, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate that. 'Cause it's kind of funky just to have to sit here looking at it like this, right? All right. So as I'm looking at this stream information, it tells me there's 6 people watching and there's 0 people watching. So that's always fun. So I guess until we have, hey, to Atheist, hello and welcome. You know, I should probably post about it in, I think I posted about it in the other Discord. Cool. All right, you guys are here. Awesome. Having a good time. Cool. That's great. So how many students do we have here? And then for those of you that were wondering, I think everybody here perhaps knows why we're restarting this channel, maybe what the goal is of the channel. Anybody have any knowledge of that? I'm sure as we gain more followers and this becomes more of a regular thing, we're going to have sort of a, hi everybody, jump right in. But until that time, I just want to make sure that we have people here, and I think I'll put maybe a timestamp when we start the lesson for any students that are watching. I think it's Sunday for most of you. So that's it. I think that some of the stuff we're going to cover is probably stuff that you guys already know. But in our little pre-game kind of thing, you guys did have some really good questions, and so hopefully we can kind of go over that. Please remember it says not for kids, so you guys can interact and ask questions as we're doing this. However, please remember that this is for students. So if you guys, I know you currently watching this won't, but I do want to let other people know that things like swearing, sexual comments, anything like that, those are going to get you just immediately kicked off the channel. You know, I don't know. It's not shocking to me. It's just annoying. So I don't know what goal people have when they make these comments. I've had people make very weird comments, and I always wonder why. You know, what's your goal there? You know, do you think like, oh, I'll be very excited and interested in this? No. You know, I don't think that you're witty or anything. And no Latin. That's good. That reminds me of something a student of mine said. But he was this little second grader. I will tell you this story because it's ridiculous. We were asking the kids, hey, so what are some rules that you shouldn't be doing or shouldn't be following, or you know, what are some classroom things that you guys know? Oh, we'll have to raise your hand. Yes, that's right. Raise your hand. Blah blah blah. And as we're going through this little kid stands up with 2 middle fingers just blasted to the ceiling. And he says, and teacher, no effing. But he says the word. In my head, I'm laughing considerably, but I can't, you know, I don't want to reward that behavior with laughing, because if I do that, then the other students might be encouraged to do it because they're second graders. So they were maybe 8 years old, you know. And I said, that's right. We don't want to use that finger, and we don't want to say that word. That's right. So when Menno, when you said a no Latin, well, that's what I remembered. Ratza, back with sugar-free soda. Welcome back. We didn't really miss anything. We're just sort of doing a introduction, letting people kind of gather. But I think 7 is going to be where we are at, and that is totally fine. How are you guys doing today? I know it's the weekend for most of you. How are you guys doing with your weekend? I want to make sure we don't just listen to me talking. We're going to be listening to you and what you guys are doing. I know it's pretty difficult these days, you know, staying indoors, and now we have this, second wave, third wave, fourth wave in some places. I think in the States, maybe you're just on the same wave that just keeps increasing. So are you guys doing okay? Holding up all right? Keeping your wits about you and all of that stuff? So I'll just go ahead and wait for answers. 1 more hour and tomorrow it's back to work. 25th wave everywhere, perhaps. But I think you're in Sweden, right? So that's... Haven't you guys been just kind of riding the same wave over there? Hopefully you're all at least basically healthy. 2 confirmed cases at work. That's unfortunate. Had a very bad day. My car broke and had to walk to your workplace. That's unfortunate. Are you able to recover it? Able to get it fixed at least? Hopefully your workplace understood if you were late. That's really, not good. I think I was late to work once for car related stuff because somebody slammed into my car and totaled it. That was not salvageable. They would not give me the amount the car was worth, and I had just paid it off a couple months earlier, and I had just put in a new transmission. I had to put in a new transmission, and I'd just done that 2 weeks prior. It was, that was difficult. That was a difficult time. Get it fixed tomorrow. That's good. On my side, mostly just getting other people and companies to do their part on projects, catch up, or just generally get on the ball. I know we had a fairly large wave at the beginning of the year. Summer was really good, and then we spiked because not because school's open, but because people thought it was over and started partying. Yes, unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at here in Korea. It seems that people are forgetting that the reason we were doing so well is because of the social distancing. So it doesn't mean that it was gone. It just means we were keeping it under control, and so unfortunately that ended up being causing another spike. So we're currently on another high. Possibly might be going to the highest social distancing level, and that's what it is. All right, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and get started on early development and change over time. I'm not sure if anybody watching this has any issues that we're gonna talk about with change over time. So we'll just jump right in, and I'll give you guys time to discuss that. Okay. So of course, a lot of stuff that we have today as a species did not always exist, and I know that everybody seems to know that. We talk about dogs, and where did dogs come from? Oh, they came from wolves, and cats came from these larger cats. There was a type of like a savanna cat, I think it is, from around old Nubia, which is now Ethiopia, and that became like the domesticated cat. But pigs, have you guys ever seen a pig in person? Because I think that when we see pigs, first of all, we're usually seeing pigs as a food on your plate. But have you guys seen a pig in person? I'm just curious. In work news, I'm top boss of the local workers union. I'm aiming to make that full-time next year. Desk position, less stress, less bad. Well, good. And I think you'll have that power to yell at people who sneeze with their mouth, achoo, open kind of issue. My dad got a pig for a birthday. He was tasty. Was it a pig that he got and then you guys raised it and then you slaughtered it? Or was it like a big old roast pig? I've seen a boar. Are they the same? Actually very similar. So that was going to be the next thing, was this, the boar. So boars are huge, right? If we look at, I just want to show you these boars. If you guys haven't seen a boar, oops, not see, that's all right. This one, I think the first one is going to be, possibly photoshopped. I remember that back in the day. These guys are just quite large. Yeah, not a great time. Okay, boars are huge. They're aggressive. They are monsters. So there is a reason that if some of you are European background or if you're interested in European history, you might see boar heads as a like a family crest type of thing or on a coat of arms. And that's why these are really vicious animals. Like pigs, they're just gonna eat everything. And I guess a sort of a fun fact, yeah, I don't know if this is 100% accurate here with this wild boar. Obviously, some of them are going to be bigger. Yes, do not mess with the wild boar. Just don't even like this. Do not try. Don't pretend. Okay. Um, Honestly, I thought boars had tusks and pigs do not. It depends on the breed of pig, but no, they've been bred out. Boars are also very hairy. That's the other thing to remember. They're very hairy, and you can sort of see this. I think you guys can see my mouse, right? You can see this big hump they have. This is sort of a better image here. So they're going to be shaped a bit differently. I mean, this is a pretty funky animal. Let's just be honest. This is like, what is this? 30% head. Yeah, you know what I mean. This is a pretty funky animal, right? It's like those gym bros. Have you seen them? Like they've got their traps start here and then they come down here and there's no like shoulder definition. It's just all traps and just this huge chest and then they didn't work legs. Like that's the impression I'm getting here. We have a pretty big boar problem in my area. I've never seen one. Most animals can be dangerous to humans in the worst cases. That's true. I would say in moderate cases, boars are pretty dangerous. Actually, boars ended up getting kind of interesting sort of sidetrack thing. Boar problem in Fukushima. You guys might remember as this the town that had the nuclear disaster in Japan. So a bunch of people, of course, had to be evacuated. The boars have stepped in, and the boars they are all radioactive. They are not something you want to eat, and they're just quite aggressive. So not a good time. So people that are going back to the town now, hoping to collect stuff that was left there and start putting their homes back together and whatnot. They are coming to see that they have some new neighbors. So they did not grow two heads. So as I tell my students, if you have an interaction with a lot of radiation, you do not get superpowers, you just get super cancer. So these guys, if they are surviving to adulthood, they are typically going to have some kind of like heart problems or something else that is a defect, but it's not so much that they are unable to function. But in some cases, they are going to be born with that, like a severe mutation where they don't even live. They're just kind of born, stillborn. So that's kind of intense. I just thought it was kind of fun. Can you just imagine you're going back home, you're worried. What if my stuff survived? Can I even bring some of those photographs back? Oh, I hope those photos didn't get damaged by the radiation. Do photos get damaged by radiation? You got all these things going on in your head, trying to get your stuff back, any family heirlooms and stuff. And then as you turn around the corner to go on your street, you just see a bunch of wild boars standing in the street charging at you. What an unexpected kind of shock. That's not exactly fair, I think. So yeah. So for pigs though, pig size, so they are quite large. You can get some pretty funky pigs, okay? These are big animals. They definitely weigh more than a person, and they definitely will eat a person. Of course it depends on which breed. If you get one of these like smaller pigs, they're bred to be small and sort of kept either at home or kept in places where there's not a lot of food available for farm animals. Same sort of issue with the Chihuahua. You guys know the Chihuahua dog. It was bred tiny because it was an easy source of meat that didn't need a lot of food to grow. But yeah, pigs are quite large animals. So I just kind of wanted to run that by you. And of course, we know that there's a lot of stuff that existed in the past that doesn't exist anymore. This guy, he's got some cousins that still exist. These are monsters. You do not, if you see a flightless bird, you know, yeah, they're not going to fly away from you, but that's because they're not scared of you. They're going to charge at you and just like use their these claws that they have, these talons, and they're just going to just gore you, you know, not even tear you open. We're just going to use the verb gore because they're just going to destroy you. So these are some pretty nasty birds. If you go to Australia, and to be fair, everything in Australia will kill you, but you can actually check out our good friend the cassowary. Not Casso. Oh, hello, Anthony Casso. Cassowary. This is this guy, which looks very, I mean, let's agree, very festive in a very ridiculous way. Like a drag queen, sort of just overly festive and pointlessly so. But do not let that fool you. These are quite aggressive birds. And again, you can't really see their talons very well, but you know, it's, oh, I have like a razor right here. Can you guys see this? I gotta switch over to there we go. So we're, you know, even something that long, that's enough to hit your major arteries, you know what I mean? So even if they're not gonna completely slice and dice, you know, they will end you, okay? You're gonna get out of this with, you're gonna have a bad day, okay? My mom keeps chickens. They're super sweet. I love chickens. I spent a lot of my summers on a chicken ranch. Almost all of my summers growing up on a chicken ranch. And I love them. They're so cute. This is not them. But even around chickens, have you been around like a mother hen? That is... You're like, oh, look, she's got her babies with her. And then she will charge at you with her wings spread and just charge at you angrily, but her babies are also trying to keep up with her, so it's like these little tracers like running around behind the mom, and the mom's trying to attack you and scratch you and stuff. And you know, when you're a kid, yeah, it's not, you know, it's not this long, but it may as well be because you're a child and you don't realize that this is not going to kill you or even hurt you very much. But to you, you know, you're a child, so, yeah. Zebras are dangerous as heck, too. I have never encountered a zebra, but, yes. When I was a kid, I survived a rooster attack. I was scared to death. I meant chicken, sorry. That's okay. I know you wrote roadster, but I'm assuming you meant rooster. But a roadster attack would be quite a story to survive, for sure. Yeah, these, you know, when we think about dinosaurs and how the dinosaurs died out, they didn't die out. They're just birds now. That's what we call them. So as you can imagine, all of these really aggressive dinosaurs, we can also think about them as our, you know, our good friends, the birds. This guy here, I think, let's just appreciate how stupid he looks. So this is based on these fossils that we found that have these teeth, and of course the idea here, if we want to make it bigger, this is cool. I don't get to do this when I'm on full screen. You know, as you know, sharks, when they lose a tooth, they have more teeth to kind of replace it. So this is sort of that beginner stage, but just a very stupid looking design. Let's be honest. Look at his eyes sticking out, you know. Sort of a hammerhead shark kind of style. Just very stupid looking. We've had a lot of very stupid looking animals in the past. We have a lot of very stupid looking animals today. Do you guys have a favorite stupid animal? The atheist asks, are dodos the last extinct bird? That would be nice if it were. There's a lot of birds, unfortunately, that we're not really sure of their endangeredness, just because of the types of destruction that we're doing with like forestry and like cutting down rainforests and stuff. So unfortunately, we are pushing a lot of birds to that brink, if not already have, for sure. But it's, yeah, unfortunately not. Yeah, it's one of the more well known. That's what Rats has said. But yes, it's definitely, unfortunately, not the only one, or not the most recent one. Yeah, it is a pretty dumb looking thing. I mean, your mouth still works, right? You know, but can you imagine that? You just like walk around like this all day. So that's definitely something. So that's our good friend the Dodo, which the poor Dodo. He's just very edible. That's all he was. Just edible and not too it didn't really, I mean, you guys probably know the story of the Dodo, but basically it was on these regions that it didn't have any predators, any natural predators, and I think it was Dutch sailors during that push to get the spice trade, going. They found them and they're like, well, these are edible and they're easy to kill. They don't run away. They don't fly away. They don't attack us. Apparently they were not super tasty. I guess they were quite gristly, but edible. I think when you're stuck at sea, edible is all you're really caring about. Let's see. Wikipedia even has an article called List of Extinct Bird Species Since 1500. That is not surprising, but also still sad to hear. Unintelligent design, yes. I think anybody who argues that these were deliberately and intelligently designed, I think anyone just show them this guy and ask about that. The Tasmanian Wolf, maybe you guys have seen it. This one is interesting because it's either the Tasmanian Wolf or Tasmanian Tiger. That's how I was aware, or that's how I knew it. We actually did have footage of these in captivity. So these were from 1912, I believe, and these were the last two wild pairs that were believed to be found. But recently there's been a push to bring them back from extinction. So that would be done with, as you can kind of glean from here, if you guys want to read about it more, definitely can. Just look up Nature Tasmanian Tiger Genome. And so there is a push to try to see if we can recreate these. Now these, of course, are pretty funky looking. I mean, look at that jaw. Doesn't that just look broken? But it's just stretching. I mean, this is a funky animal, isn't it? Look at this thing. That is a funky animal. It's quite long looking as well, right? It's got this weird longness to it. Just a weird looking thing. How would you classify this? Is this a dog? Is this a cat? So this is kind of an interesting looking thing. Of course we can learn more about it if you guys like. I do know with the cheetah, they were a little bit concerned, like, should we say it's a true cat? Does it really belong in the feline family because it doesn't have the retractable claws? So that's, some of these classification issues. The genetics of Australian wildlife is pretty interesting too. It is for sure. Definitely is. And then of course, like our friends, the other dinosaurs. If you guys haven't seen these more modern or updated pictures, so this is a velociraptor, and yeah, these guys had wings, or not wings, feathers. So I mean, I guess technically your arm with feathers on it is a wing, but feathers is something we found, and we've actually, this is not really like a guess that comes off the top of our head. Fossil, feather, what am I thinking? Velociraptor. There we go. So we got very lucky to find these feathers that have been preserved, and it's pretty cool. And if you think about it, it does make sense for us to stop thinking about dinosaurs like this or ancient animals like this and just start thinking about them more like stuff we have today. If you look at something like a penguin skeleton, for example, this is how a penguin skeleton looks, okay? Can we imagine now if we tried to apply this dinosaurizing, to re-add stuff to this, we would have this really weird looking animal, wouldn't we? It would maybe have no, there's no fingers or anything that's that's not going to change, but it's going to have this big long neck. Of course, in reality, we know that they're covered in blubber and they just have a head and like a really big, long looking body. But if we were to try to recreate them, having not seen them and only seeing this bone thing, applying that dinosaur artistic style, I guess we could call it, we would have these really long-necked looking birds. And that's just not how they appeared. So of course that's one thing that we have to keep in mind, that we're not going to be able to fossilize soft tissue. So all this fat and feathers and stuff tends to go away. That's why we got really lucky with those feathers. Yes, the Thylacine, which is a marsupial, right, which is not related to dog or cats. Just look at the niche in its environment. Exactly. The reason that I was sort of bringing that up was when I mentioned here where it says the Tasmanian wolf, and I said I knew it as a Tasmanian tiger, so I should have been a little bit more clear. But yes, they are closer to marsupials than anything else. An owl without feathers also looks creepy. Yeah, let's look at that. Owl, no feathers. There we go. Yeah, pretty. I mean, this would be something you would maybe see in, Jurassic Park or something, right? There's also the, so there's also some animals that, so this had a skin condition, but this is a bear. So this is how a bear looks. And obviously this is not, if somebody tried to recreate, a bear based on a skeleton from the future, and maybe bears had gone extinct, 5,000 years in the future or so, that might be something they come up with. And of course that's not at all what they look like. So kind of an interesting sort of thing. So you guys hopefully know about evolution. I think all of you guys do. I was hoping to get a bit of a spread of people that maybe were not familiar with evolution. But is anybody not familiar with that? Remember, this is not a biology class, so we're not going to go too in depth. But if you know anything about it, that you want to just have your definition, how would you describe evolution? So I'll give you guys a second to type that. And I'm going to try to gently stir my coffee because there's cocoa powder in it. But of course I don't want to spill it. So your own definition of evolution. Not a scientific definition necessarily, definitely not a dictionary definition. But how would you describe evolution? Especially if you're trying to talk to someone who maybe is not aware of what evolution is. Evolution, okay? So we can talk about why Ratza made that joke as well while we're waiting. So there are some people that do not accept evolution. And these people tend to be in parts of the world that have a very high religiosity. Either that's just the population is very religious, or the government itself is controlled by religion. So for a lot of reasons that have to do with the religious text, the idea of things slowly changing over time does not mesh very directly with the creation stories in those religious texts. And of course, we will do religious studies as well. I would like to start with the Apocrypha, but if any of you are particularly interested in the Bible, the Quran, or anything else, please let me know. But as far as we can tell, they are stories. Now, some people think that they are allegorical, or they're just trying to illustrate some kind of connection between humans and this concept of a deity. But otherwise, the evolution stuff is stuff that we have evidence for. Does that mean that there's absolutely no gods and nothing was created? No, it just means that we don't have any evidence for it, so that's not something that I can really teach you guys. But again, of course, we can always discuss it at a later time. Let's see. Rat's liberal agenda to overview Jesus. Oh wait, should we take this seriously? No, have fun with it. Please have fun with it. I tell my students that learning should be interesting and exciting. You know, what's our thing as humans? It's a brain. It's to analyze and to learn and to think, right? Now think about a flighted bird. So not any of our good friends like the penguin or these, flightless cassowaries or stuff. Think about a bird that has evolved to fly. That's its thing. It flies. What if you just saw this bird walking everywhere? You'd be like, what's wrong with this bird? And the bird had nothing wrong with it. It just decided to not fly. You'd be like, okay, bird, come on. What's going on in there, right? And it's the same thing, I think, with people that make education too stressful, or they just stop learning because, oh, well, I graduated high school, so I'm not going to learn anything anymore. I feel the same way about them as I would if I saw a bird that preferred to walk instead of fly. You're missing out on all the cool stuff that your brain could be doing. So please, please, please have fun with it. Evolution is the change happening to organisms over time due to some random mutations. Cool. Gradual change to an animal's makeup from generation to generation. Also cool. Yes, change over time, and not just biology. Take how cars have evolved over time too. Also, funny image posted on Miss Lemon's Discord first. Thank you. So that is how we just are going to talk about evolution. It is small changes over a long period of time. And just the reason is, as you guys said, they are random mutations. So, as we know, you are not a carbon copy of your parents. As a result, these small changes end up making big changes over time. It's kind of like anything else, you start writing your essay by writing the first sentence. These small changes that you add to it make it look big over time if you weren't there. And this is something that still happens today. So this is the peppered moth. This is a really common example. And so it's called the peppered moth because it's peppered. And we can just see from this first section, this unpolluted environment on the left, which one is going to be easily spotted by predators, like a bird, for example. We're talking a lot about birds today. Don't have any, preference for birds in particular, but yes, we are talking a lot about birds today. You guys know that the black one obviously stands out very easily. So that just means this black moth isn't going to get a chance to pass on its DNA very much. That doesn't mean the DNA goes away. It just means that if that DNA for black moth, or mostly black moth, shows up again in the future moths, that one's probably going to be eaten pretty quickly. And that's how we end up with these moths that are not that way. But of course, this polluted environment is, the right side is the polluted environment. And the pollution here is from coal factories. So these are trees. These are the same environments these guys live in. But now we can see the black moth is a lot easier to blend in. Of course, we can see the moth, right? But if you're an animal walking by, flying by quickly, which one of these is immediately going to stand out to you? It's the one that doesn't blend in as easily. So for that reason, now this darker moth, the moth that's mostly black or completely black, those are the ones that are going to pass on their DNA. That's it. That's all there is to it. And we can sort of think about it as a polluted environment now. If we have some kind of genetic variation that protects us against certain types of pollution, just got lucky. Do you know what I mean? These days, a lot of people are dying from air pollution. They're just getting sick and dying from it. They're getting different kinds of lung diseases and just dying. If you happen to have that kind of mutation, you're going to be a healthier person. You're going to have more of a chance to interact with people. make money, and be more socially successful, so you're probably going to have a chance to have kids. And because of that, your kids are more likely going to have some kind of lung benefit. We can also think about it as the Black Death that happened in Europe in the 1300s, mid 1300s. The people that already had this type of natural immunity to it for whatever reason, maybe their immune system was better, maybe they just happened to be immune somehow, maybe there was something weird about their bodies where they just couldn't be infected. Those are the people that survived. Because of that, the population that did survive and continued to have kids, they're going to have that quirk. That doesn't mean that 100% of the people will, but a lot of the people will, and more of the population than before, for sure. That's why there's no black polar bears or rabbits. There are black rabbits, but I think you mean just in polar rabbits. I think that's what you meant. And yes, that's definitely true. It's hard for them to sneak up on their prey if they're very, very obvious. I seriously didn't see the black moth in the image until you pointed it out. Okay, well then great. Good job, black moth. You were doing awesome. Keep up the good work with that. I think for me, I have a harder time seeing the peppered moth in this mossy environment. The speckles on the moth, which is why things have spots and speckles, it breaks up the image a lot better, so it's harder to see the outline. It reminds me of when I was in the military and we had to put on our camo paint, and just how we had to break up the natural highs and lows of a face. So in these low parts that were shadow parts, we had to put the lightest color. And in these high parts that are lighter parts that reflect light really well, we had to put like black here. So we would have black here, here, and here, and here. And then we'd put stuff like green or that tan color in these like hollow areas, I guess you can call them. So that way from far away, that it doesn't fit in like a face would look. Yeah. So if we had just done all green, for example, you could still see the highs and lows, the reflections of light and the shadows and stuff, so you can still actually make out a human face that way. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Interesting trivia: the polar bear's skin is black, but the fur doesn't have any pigment at all. Polar bears are cool. Yes, the fur is clear, as far as I remember. I don't know about them being black, but let's see. Polar bear. Oh, let's say hairless bear. Why not? It's ready. It's ready to go. This is not the hairless polar bear. Here we go. I mean, I guess in the Arctic, I would definitely call that black. To me, though, I think that's more of a gray. But yes, the hair itself, we can actually check out the polar bear hair follicles. Okay, maybe this is helpful. Maybe. Wow, this is not what I was expecting, but I'm not disappointed. Look at that. That's nice. Look at that thick hair. That's good looking hair. All right. Polar bear hair. Let's do color. How about that? We're not seeing it. And again, I suppose this would be that unintelligent sort of design, right? Because if you are a polar bear and you get into a fight, for example, and you lose a chunk of your hair, now what do we gotta see from far away? This weird black splotch. You know what I mean? Would have made more sense to have a white bear with white hair, or clear hair maybe if it has some kind of reflective properties of it. But interesting looking bear. Fun times. Also bear, this is not the bear paw I wanted to show you, but I'll show you a bare foot, because they're kind of fun. Isn't that just funky? Because this is what we see, you know, because they're swiping at us and whatever. So we see this, like, paw-looking thing, you know, like a cat's paw or something. But that foot is different. Look at this thing. This is great. I love it. I love it. If you saw that somewhere, you'd be like, you know, I wonder if just a giant bear is Bigfoot. Do you know what I mean? Those big footprints that are not hoaxes, for example. If somebody might find one and Yeah, sorry, this Kaspersky is coming up here. I wonder if it's just a bear walking around, you know, jumping up to reach something or whatever, but just was kind of walking around for a second on 2 feet. And maybe that was Bigfoot. Because I know there's bears in those regions where Bigfoot is found. Huh. Did we figure it out, guys? Did we figure it out? Yeah, a standing, walking big bear, yeah. We know these bears are gigantic. You know, some of these bears are just like massive. You know, grizzly bears and stuff. I mean, if you want to, like a Kodiak, for example, Kodiak bear size. Okay. So the black bear, grizzly bear, brown bear, some of the Kodiak bears, for example. I mean, this is like, this ends your day. You know what I mean? You're done. You see this thing, you're deleted, right? Just immediately. So if we can try to look at his foot compared to this bear's foot, you know, we would see this is really, really, really big in comparison. What could make these big footprints? You guys, I think we figured it out. They can stand on their hind legs for some time. Exactly. I'm just trying to think of why it would be on its hind legs in the middle of the woods. But even then, you know, when we're looking at Bigfoot footprints, we're not looking at a long trail of Bigfoot footprints. It's like 2 footprints out of nowhere. And then, you know, maybe 4 steps and then it's gone. So that's what I'm thinking, oh, it just kind of got up to yell at another bear, stepped a little bit, maybe grabbed something out of a tree, and then kept walking normally, you know. I don't know. Did we figure it out? I thought grizzlies were the biggest type too. Oh, I thought Kodiaks were. So I don't know if brown bear and Kodiak bear are the exact same. Again, I'm not a biologist, but yeah, polar bears, those are the big guys. The Kodiak and the brown bear, the black bear, the grizzly, those are the ones that you and I probably might encounter if we're in the forest somewhere. You're probably not gonna encounter a polar bear by accident. You know what I mean? But yeah, did we, you know, maybe we just figured it out, guys. Yeah. Maybe we just figured it out. All right, that's it. We discovered it. Slide 9, and we already figured out this this mystery. Good job, us. This is our cool friend, the skink, losing his arms. So this is an example. What might cause this? Yeah, the image in the second row says polar bears are the biggest. They are, right. So I'm saying they are the biggest. The reason I wasn't including, or they're not included like here, for example, is this is something that you're probably going to encounter in the woods. So if you go camping, or if you go fishing, or if you are a logger or something, these are the types of bears you're likely to encounter. Yes, the polar bear is the biggest. However, you're not going to encounter that by accident. So that's why there's these 2 separate kind of situations. You can also see this one here. You know, huge. Polar bears are huge, but that is quite a pose, right? That's normal human walking, right? But yeah, when we're looking at bear sizes, comparing them to people, and you're in North America, usually they're going to leave out the polar bear just because you're not going to encounter a polar bear on accident. If you encounter a polar bear, you probably are doing it because you're trying to film a documentary or something. It's the same reason. Yeah, here we go. So like these are some bears that you're not really going to encounter in North America, right? It's same kind of thing. But yes, polar bears, as far as we know, are the largest. Of course, there might be like a very small polar bear compared to a very big Kodiak bear. But yeah, it's a very interesting time. So I guess we can learn about grizzlies, brown bears, and Kodiak bears if you guys want extra credit. Okay. Swedish bears are pretty small. Are they anything like Swedish fish? You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Our good friend the skink here is losing his limbs. Why might this be? What are some changes in the environment that might favor moving around on your belly? You know what I mean? Because, I mean, we are very partial to our legs, right? So what's something that might encourage you to you know, if you're moving around your belly, that might be faster if you don't have your legs getting in the way. I swear I'm not going to encounter a grizzly or Kodiak either. That's true for you, Ratza. That's true for you, I would say. The wildest animal I have seen is a fox. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Is this one of those animals that when you make it scared, when it loses its tail? So this, a lot of lizards do that. They will do that. I've seen it. I was that kid always playing in the dirt and everything, and so I had heard about the lizards, so we knew if you grabbed them by the tail, they would detach their tail. Cool. It was interesting. But that's not one of these guys. What's going on with this guy? Can you think of anything that might favor belly movement, or at least the lack of arms? So remember, again, with evolution, these are mutations that happen. They are not like, the animal doesn't will itself to lose any limbs. It just happens to be successful in this case. If the environment had changed too quickly, it would either have to adapt with its legs or just die. So that's what's happening here. Yes, so the tail does move for a time with those lizards. So the idea for that is if you grab a lizard by its tail as a predator, and the lizard detaches its tail, the tail is going to move around still, just because that's muscle twitching, residuals and stuff, but also because it's like, I have a live thing in my mouth, I'm a predator, I'm not going to put this live thing down to run after the bigger thing, which is the rest of the lizard. I'm going to sit here and say, okay, I got something, and eat that. And so that's the reason for it. So they lose their tails because usually their tail is going to be the part that's chomped, and then that way they can just detach it. Boom. They can also do it without it being chomped. So if they're running away, they can drop off a tail, which is, can you imagine losing an arm as you're running? You're just like, oh no, there's somebody that's coming after me. Boop! Off goes my arm, you know, like willfully. What would that even feel like, to willfully detach part of your body? I don't know what muscles are engaging there to willfully detach part of your body. That's very impressive. But yeah, the idea is that, well, I could keep chasing this thing that's living and delicious, or I can just enjoy this living, because I think it's living because it's moving, and delicious thing. And so I'm gonna eat this tail. That's the idea. Let's see. A rocky surface on the surface. It depends on how sharp the rocks are. Like, yeah, so I was in like that deserty kind of area. Stealth, is this a venomous snake or constrictor? No, this is a skink, actually. It's not a snake. The other skinks look like this. Let's see. Skink. That's how they look. Wow, look at that. Don't you want to just pinch his little cheekies? Like, that's great. So this is how skinks look. They look very similar to like a lizard and a snake kind of had a baby. Again, we're getting that like mega traps, you know, just supporting the head sort of thing. But these, there are some of them in a specific region that are losing their legs over time. Swedish bears, grizzlies, and Kodiaks are all considered brown bears, so they could mate and probably survive in each other's environment. I would say so. I would say because it's the boreal forest, right? It's the what's the everyday word? Oh my god, pine trees. They're pine tree forests. I was like, oh, coniferous. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I mean, it is what I'm looking for, but it's you know, I just want to make sure we all are on the same page. It's a pine tree type of forest, evergreen forest. But yeah, so this guy, there could be a lot of changes. It could be an area that's getting more watery, so it's easier to swim this way. Have you guys ever seen the Sidewinder snake? So the Sidewinder snake's pretty cool. I wish I could show you a video, but it would flag this stream. So the Sidewinder snake, it leaves a weird trail. If we could watch it walking, that would be cool. Because it walks Okay. This is kind of the best we're going to get. All right. So the tail part here and this middle bend here, these are making contact right now with the hot sand. And then it alternates to these bends here. So it's almost like walking with its body, which is kind of interesting. So it's quite quick too. So if you guys are able to watch a video real quickly with the Sidewinder Snake, it moves very quickly. So that would be a great way to move, to not make constant contact with the heat. And then also if your area is desertifying, so it's becoming a desert, not a dessert, it's, you guys have walked in the sand. Not a fun time. Same issue if you got 4 legs too. Not a fun time. You can be a lot faster if you're just on your belly, especially if you're doing this weird jumping thing that these snakes are doing. So this could also be a reason for that as well. Speaking of skinks, they're also slow worms, which are really just legless lizards. Yes. I'm trying to remember which one it is specifically. If you can remember the name of it, please share. Carnivorous trees. Not carnivorous. Cruciferous trees. Cruciferous trees. I've seen videos of the Sidewinder. Yeah, they're super honking fast. And this guy is one of them ugly fish, okay? It's a lipstick fish, and it's actually in Australia of all places. This fish is pretty cool because how do you think it's moving around the water? How do you think it's getting around its environment? Any guesses for our good friend the lipstick fish? And while you guys are waiting for this, because I know there is a delay, lipstick fish. That's how it looks from the side. Okay, it's a very prominent nosed fish. Okay, it's good looking fish. I wonder if this fish would be a model, because it's got such a unique kind of look to it. Is that all we got? Just like those 2 pictures? Oh, there we go. That's great. That's, I think, a great shot. What do we got? What do we got for this? How is this guy moving around its environment? Walking, jumping, and magic. Yes, that's it. Magic, of course, is the best way for anything to move. It just teleports through different sections of this. I was gonna say space, but I'm thinking the ocean. So, as you guys have probably learned, life started in the sea, and eventually stuff started crawling out of the sea. That's not something that's stopped. All of this evolution stuff, it didn't happen in the past. It's all these things that are happening now. We still have eyes that are evolving from primitive eyes. So it's a pretty interesting thing to check out. I included this here because red hair and green eyes are a recent mutation for humans. This is about 10 or 15,000 years ago. Before that, we didn't have this. So this is another mutation. So if you happen to have red hair and or green eyes, I guess you could call yourself an X-Men. X-person. I don't know. You're a mutant, and that's cool. Okay. Any comments or questions about this? Also, why do we call them redheads, even though they have orange hair? That's because in English, the word orange did not exist until oranges, the fruit, were imported from India. So actually the color that was just red or reddish yellow, or the color of red like a fox. So that's how, foxes are orange, but you can call them red like a fox. So that's how the word had appeared. And then once oranges were imported, which was naranj, and so it's like an orange and orange and orange kind of thing. So once these were imported, people could say like it is the color of an orange, and so it is orange colored. It is orange. So that's how that ended up in English. I can't attest to these other languages, but that's where it comes from. So the orange fruit is not named after the color. The color in English is named after the fruit. Kind of interesting. Interesting stuff. All right. Now this is a video. I can put some links in the section if you'd like, the details section. So this is a video about different stuff you can see on your body that is a result of evolution. Residual stuff like goosebumps. So why do we get goosebumps? Does anyone know why we get goosebumps? So we're talking about gingers with no souls. Yes, that is unfortunately the stereotype for people that have red hair and green eyes and freckles. But I suppose until we can prove that anyone has a soul, perhaps we should hold off on making fun of them for having no souls, because I guess you could make fun of any of us for having no demonstrable soul as well. So some of these things are really interesting. The goosebumps thing, does anyone know where that comes from? Anybody at all? I know this is kind of, we're at what, 1 hour. Don't worry, this is how long the lesson should be. Don't worry. To make ourselves look bigger when we had hair, not so much bigger as it is to trap heat, or trap air, which traps heat. Yes, so it's to raise our fur. So it's for a lot of, I'm sure you guys have seen like a cold bird. Fluffy. So birds do this too. They get very poof poof, and I love it. It's very poof. So a lot of it is to trap that extra hair. So it's kind of interesting. It can also trigger that to make us look larger as well, which is why when we have that rush of adrenaline, we tend to get that. So even in situations where we are not scared or angry, we can still get goosebumps. Like if you hear music that gives you that adrenaline rush, you get all those goosebumps because of that. So it's kind of a cool thing. There's another one that is about forearm tendon. No, that's not what I want. How about forearm tendon evolution? There we go. This is actually from the video. Okay. So you guys can do this right now. You're going to take your thumb and your pinky finger and you're going to touch them together and then slightly tilt it up and then see if you have this band that sticks up. Okay. For those of you that have this, you may have thought, oh, this is that thing where, if I cut it, it'll bleed out a lot, but that's actually not, that's not your veins or anything. This is a tendon. So how many of you do have this tendon versus I do not have it? So I have this tendon. So does anybody have this? I'm just gonna wait. It's okay. The lag is there. So I can get my coffee in. When I'm doing this in like an online class and there's no lag, there's still a delay. It's just not from, they can't blame the lag. You have it, okay? I'm just curious, just out of our group, what % of people have it? So again, we're taking the thumb. I think that's what I'm seeing. I got it. And I might also a mutant. All right. So it says there's 7 concurrent viewers, but I think you guys are the ones that are the most talkative, which is totally fine. I have the arm tendon. Cool. So all of us are old school. The one where it's absent, that's the new one. So there's actually no difference in grip strength. And this is actually kind of a spare part. So we are lucky to have that. If you ever get into a really bad car accident and you're just like, your jaw is just like over here, okay? And they have to figure out how to reattach this tendon, and this tendon's like filleted and just destroyed. They can actually take it from here and repair this. And so they can use it just as a spare part, which is pretty cool. And you don't lose any grip strength. So this is a residual thing, and we're not mutants exactly. Sorry, don't want to, I'm sorry, we were on Team Mutant for a while, but no. So this actually has to do with when we were walking on all fours. So that's what it's for. So that's why it doesn't have any bearing on like our ability to grip stuff or anything. But it's cool. Even though we're not in Team Mutant, we are Team Spare Parts. So that's always fun, I think. Another one, did anybody not have wisdom teeth? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I know they have different names. I think in Korean they're love teeth. And they are these extra molars that grow in when you're like around 17 years old. Does anybody never got those? I mean, I don't have them because they were removed, but did anybody just never get them? Or did you all have wisdom teeth? So I'm team old school because I still have my wisdom teeth. And as I'm waiting for you guys to respond, the wisdom teeth, of course, painful stuff, right? And imagine having them grow in and you cannot remove them. You had 3. Oh, that's interesting. I had 4. Not anymore. So you had them. Then you have 2 of them. Do you have 2 other wisdom teeth that didn't need to be pulled? Or did you only have 2 wisdom teeth? So imagine, though, that these are growing, and they grow funky, okay? The reason that you want to get yours probably removed is because you just don't have enough room in your mouth most of the time. So these are impacted. Yeah, look at that. It knows what we're talking about. Thank you, Google, for listening to us. You can see they grow in a funky way sometimes, okay? Wow, that's exciting. Look at that. Thank you. Thank you, Google. I know some of you guys don't like blood. I'm sorry. But it's educational blood, okay? And as you can see here, if you can read this teeny tiny little font, it says infected gums, okay? We're very lucky to be living in a world that has antibiotics, although not very lucky that we're overusing antibiotics, which is a different situation. But this will kill you. Okay. Actually, one of the findings we have for Homo erectus is Turkana boy. Turkana boy was about 8 to 12 years old, and based on the destruction of his jaw and also the age that he died, it appears he died from a tooth abscess, so like an infected part of his jaw. He just died. That sucks. That's the face I would make too if I was dying from my tooth, okay? Not only is it an infection, right, but it's also going to be really, really hard to chew. It's just going to hurt. It's going to be harder to eat. You're not going to eat as much. You're not going to eat a lot of the tough stuff that has a lot of chewing required. You're going to be weaker, so you can't run as well, and if a predator comes, you know, you're going to die from that. So we're very lucky that we are able to take them out, that we have antibiotics and all of that good stuff. Let's see. I had to remove 2. There's only 1 left. Oh, that's interesting. There's 2 remaining but not causing issues. I had them later in life, started growing at 23, got them pulled 10 years ago. I work in the histopathology lab. I've seen teeth in ovarian cysts. Yes, that is... I forget what that's called, but I've heard of teeth and hair that grow in cysts. So that's always funky. That's what happened the first tooth that got pulled. It turned sideways, got an infection, yeah. My wisdom teeth actually grew in perfectly. I got them removed due to cavities. Oh, that's interesting. For me, they started growing in, and the dentist was just like, let's just take them all out. And I said, okay. I was like 17 or something, and my mom was like, just get them taken out. Okay, so we just took them all out. All right. So some of this cool stuff that we have left over, it's from our good friend, these other hominids. Are there any of these that you have not heard of? Any of these cousins? To Atheist was intelligently designed. Yeah, apparently, except that, you know, they could have protected your teeth against cavities better. Maybe like some kind of ultra enamel or something. So we got our Homo sapiens and Neanderthal and stuff. Has anybody heard of any others? Maybe that are here, are not here. We can check out maybe this thing. It's kind of helpful. I really like these faces that we're putting on there. I like that concept. If you guys are interested in that, it's this thing called forensic reconstruction. Forensic Reconstruction. It's pretty cool. Can't read? That's okay, I understand. So this is a cool thing that helps us find missing persons, which is obviously very helpful. If there's somebody that's been missing, we only found like a skull, we can figure out who owned that skull, okay? But it's kind of cool. We have, that's not it. We can also do this to old skeletons, so it's kind of cool. Let's see if we have an old skeleton. This is sort of how they do it. It's kind of a fun kind of concept. So one of the old skeletons they did this with was King Tut. You can see it just pops up. So he looks kind of like this, okay? Why was his skull flat? You guys might want to know. This is just something that some older cultures practice. It's forehead flattening. Some people still do it today in some cultures as well. As the baby is growing, they put this plank sort of on the baby's forehead, and just kind of wrap it there. And so the head kind of grows into this cone. If you guys know anything about like ancient aliens kind of stuff, because I can't talk about history without talking about these claims of alternative history. King Tut was the kid of this other guy that the ancient aliens people insist must have been an alien, which is Pharaoh Akhenaten. Okay, so you might know this guy. He was very radical. Okay, made a lot of changes and stuff. Can we see his skull? Cool. So these are some of these elongated skulls. This was in Peru. This, I think this was supposed to be, who was this? It wasn't Ramses. This is Nefertiti, I think, because of this. I remember the damage. Oh, right here, Nefertiti. Great. I'm glad I can recognize mummies. Oh my goodness, how that's where I'm at. All right. You know, if I see you in person, I might not recognize you if it's been a while, but a mummy, yeah, I can recognize which mummies these are. So this, some people say, oh, Pharaoh Akhenaten, he was an alien, and that's why he was shaped so weird, and oh, look at this, and whatever. It was like a style choice. You can still do it. Skull flattening. In infants, is this what I'm looking for? No, but this is something that does happen actually to a lot of Korean kids, because they're just kind of, they're not carried. I don't know why. They're not carried as much maybe, or something, but some Korean kids grow up and they have a flat back of their head. They've just been lying down a lot. Some people say it was because of incest. Yes, and that's the other issue I wanted to touch more on with the rest of his body. So he had a bit of a clubbed foot and stuff, and you can see he's got these rather feminine hips. So this is the body of someone that's only gonna reproduce because he's rich. Do you know what I mean? This is not like a prime specimen in ancient history that's going to be out there hunting and you know, fighting and all of this stuff. This is a guy who's reproducing because, you know, he's the pharaoh. That's kind of where that lands. So the head stuff could be related to incest. It's likely related to the head flattening, but the rest of his these other deformities that he has, these birth defects, that's going to be from that. You can see it a little bit better here with this foot kind of twisted. Interesting thing, right? Let's see. Some places they tie a band around the skull to elongate. Yeah, that's what I was trying to look for. Skull flattening culture. Maybe that'll give us something. I think this will show it. Yeah, it's hard to see. Can we see it here? So these are the bands that are being wrapped around it. This is sort of hanging out here, doing that. These flat kind of contraptions, that's sort of what I was thinking as well. Interesting kind of concept, isn't it? To do this. You know, interesting kind of concept. It's pretty cool, I think, that our bodies are so malleable in that way. But interesting kind of concept here. But this is found, as you can see, these are people that are in the Americas, but also in Africa. So this is what I was thinking. This thing, this flat thingamajig. And then this contraption is where baby sleeps. You're not like leaving the baby in there, I think, all day. And then this flatter, mobile one is the one that they're using. So it's pretty interesting kind of concept here. Yeah, the neck elongation, that's a different culture. What, Thailand, I believe it is. And then they also file their teeth to make them pointed, because that's considered attractive as well. Let's see, the whole story with Akhenaten is super interesting. Everyone should read his attempt to turn Egypt monotheistic. Yeah, it was weird. They also had done this thing where there was the Upper and Lower Kingdom, and so they had these capital cities that would alternate. And so there was a capital city in the north and a capital city in the south, and they would kind of alternate. Akhenaten put his right in the middle and was like, this is where it's gonna be and stuff. They only found Akhenaten accidentally after his stuff was destroyed, or after his reign was over. All his stuff was destroyed, and they used it as filler in these other constructions, and that's how we found it. When those constructions had fallen apart, or just over time it just started to become rubble, we found all this stuff inside of it, and it was like these beautifully painted things that were broken. And so when we put it together, it's like, what? This whole this whole kingdom, His wife was Nefertiti, who possibly became Smenkhkarne after, to rule after he had died, before King Tut was taking the throne. So it's kind of an interesting sort of situation. Very woke, kind of stuff. Let's see, sometimes you get it from the forceps used during childbirth. Yes, that's true. Though these days, any sign of trouble, it's a C-section. Yes, I think that depends, but I think most signs of trouble, right? Yeah, it's not the steel rings, it's a steel ring. Singular, actually. It's kind of interesting. I think it's Thailand. Yeah, these guys. This is one coil. So it's a single coil. And it's actually not the neck that gets elongated, it's the shoulders that get pushed down. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah. But it's just sort of interesting what we can do. I think this is clearly looks quite photoshopped, doesn't it? But that's the idea here. So yes, here it is being taken off. So it's just very heavy, and it pushes your shoulders down over time. There was also this idea that, oh yeah, and then if their husband's upset with her or something, then they'll take off one of the rings, and then her neck will break out. No, that's not what happens. They have to be removed regularly so they can be cleaned. And it's just, again, it's not one ring, it's not a bunch of rings, it's a single coil, so you can't take out two of the rings and then let your wife's neck snap, that's just not how it works. I guess it's sort of a, xenophobic kind of thing? I don't know. Is that the word I'm looking for? Damn it, Teach, I was going to say that about the shoulders getting pushed down. I still want a gold star. You can get one. I need to be able to give gold stars. How about the razor? That's what we can use too. That's a good time. All right. Who tried this first in history? I'm not sure who tried this first in history. As for the head flattening, this goes back to African tribes. And as far as we can tell, Egypt did this first, but the Mayans and some other groups in North America and Central America seem to have developed it independently, but just, at a different, if we look in the historical record, it seems to show up in Egypt first. Ignorant, yeah, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. I don't know if it's ignorant, though. Ignorance just, I don't know. I made some lies up because I want to make this tribe look ridiculous. You know what I mean? That's why I thought maybe xenophobic. But again, this is why I'm not your English teacher. Threaten with a knife by teacher. No, we can give you the knife. We can give you this this knife, and it's so we can, you know, sharpen pencils, right? That's what it's for. That's what mine's for, anyway. All right. So what's going on with us modern humans? So our understanding is that even though we had a bunch of human ancestors, these other hominid groups, and even though some of them did leave outside of Africa, all of the evolution for us, Homo sapiens, that happened in the Africa area, okay? And so because of this, we have this out of Africa theory. That's the name of it. So when we left Africa, we left in large numbers, about 60 to 70,000 years ago, asterisk, okay? Like I tell my students, and I'm telling you because you're my students now, history doesn't change. It's just our understanding of history changes as we find more stuff. Currently, these big numbers we found are from about 70,000 years ago. Might we find numbers that are older or larger? Might we find large numbers of skeletons that are older than those? Possibly. But at the time, or at this time, currently, it's about 60 to 70,000 years ago. That doesn't mean that Homo sapiens never left Africa. We find Homo sapien bones for, you know, all kinds of time periods. We're talking about large numbers, like numbers that could sustain like small cultures and tribes. That's what we're talking about. Give you the knife. I'm sure that's a threat in some languages. I'm sure it is. But I'm just being very literal. Okay. Depends on which end first. That's true. Yeah. But I mean, it's retractable. If it's retractable claws, so it must be part feline. Okay. See, we're bringing this back full circle. I thought we left Africa after some disaster when there were less than 10,000 left. Am I confusing it with some other bottleneck? So the bottleneck that you're talking about, I think you are talking about a different type of event, but we can double check that. Let's see, Homo sapien bottleneck. Genetic bottleneck, yeah, possibly would be that period then. What I'm thinking, though, is how that fits in with Aboriginal Australians. So you can see from here, the Aboriginal Australians is perhaps 50,000 to 60,000 years ago. However, there is evidence that can go back over 100,000 years, possibly, in this region. But again, we're talking large numbers, so people could have just come there. So what I'm wondering, though, what I was thinking is that perhaps that genetic bottleneck didn't apply to some of those groups. So perhaps this wasn't as big of a genetic issue for Aboriginal Australians, and then as a result, like Fijians and stuff as well. But yes, that genetic bottleneck thing you're thinking. What happened to that? As far, did we figure out what happened to that? Bottlenecks, sharper diet. Well, it tells us what it is, literally. Let's see. As we know it, frequency, homoplasmic mutations, volcanic eruption. Oh, is that it? Was that it? The Toba volcano? So the Toba volcano, if I remember correctly, is the one in like Indonesia area. Yeah, great, Indonesia. I guess this is the event that they're thinking. So one of the issues with volcanoes is that when they erupt mega, we always think of volcanic eruptions as, oh, it's a bunch of lava, terrible. And it is terrible. But they also can shoot out a lot of like smoke and other stuff. But in this case, we're just going to care about like smoke and ash. Supervolcanoes can spew that into the atmosphere, and that blocks out the sun. So we actually had this happen a few times that we know in history, which is pretty funky. But of course, what happens if we block out the sun? A lot of stuff that grows dies, and the things that eat the things that grow, they die, and the things that eat the things that eat the things that grow die. And we're in the group of both of those, right? We want to eat the things that grow, and we want to eat the things that eat the things that grow. So that's a pretty intense thing. So it seems like this this thing here was that bottleneck, which makes sense. Exciting times. Exciting times. Have we had other bottlenecks? Possibly, but this is probably the big one that you're thinking, yeah. Which would make sense for why you would leave if stuff is just dying in here, right? You want to leave to go find some other stuff, you know. Before that, though, we just left out of curiosity, mostly. So that's always exciting. The oldest continuous culture on Earth is the Aboriginal Australian culture, by the way. There are cultures that we can say are older, but they are not continuous cultures. We can find like remnants of those cultures today. Cool. These are not practiced today. Let's see. The unpronounceable volcano in Iceland spewed out loads of dust. Which unpronounceable volcano in Iceland? Is famine also a reason? Famine would be a great reason, but the causes of the famine are varied, of course. So the supervolcano could cause a famine, absolutely, just by blocking out the sun. But these other reasons would be famine. But it does seem that the reason I say curiosity is because it does seem that our other hominid ancestors actually had that curious streak to them. They were able to cultivate fire and check stuff out. And it's a really cool kind of thing that we're able to piece together. Vanta Yokel. Yokel, isn't that glacier? Isn't that what it means? Which one meant glacier? So we did this in geography class. Iceberg, no. Volcano, map, Iceland. And there was a bunch of like Kjell something and then Jökull. And so we looked up Jökull and it meant something like, what did it mean? It meant something like glacier or something. I can't read this. Yeah, we got all the Jökull things here, and Yol, maybe that was the Fjol was the other one. So we kind of just looked it up. We're like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. Wow, Minnow, this blocked you from saying it. So what is this? Aya Fjallajökull? Is that what it is? Is that how you... I mean, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, but hopefully we got kind of close. But that's a good time. All right. So we do know that one group did leave earlier. So this group's called the Denisovans. They came out of Asia and they died out, and we know them because we found a few different looking fossils. We were able to connect them with genetics, and Asian people have these genetics. We have more genetic evidence for Denisovan than we do fossil evidence. So we don't have a ton of fossil evidence for them at this time, but maybe that will change. You guys probably have heard of Neanderthal. And when I was in school, Neanderthal, we were taught, was very stupid, very low on the, like, human level, I guess you would say. Like, all the qualities we consider human, they were very low on them. There was an idea they couldn't even speak, which we found out is wrong. That they were just kind of like glorified gorillas that were living in Europe. And it was a very negative sort of view of them, that these were the typical stupid cavemen that you guys may have heard about. And that's what we were taught. And then in the past, I don't know, 15 or so years, we've been, I don't know, I mean, I was at school a lot longer than 15 years ago, but 15 or so years, I think, is when we started really finding this information about them. Wait, don't make Teach look bad by trying to pronounce it. No, it's okay. I can make myself look bad on my own. Don't worry. But was that okay? Aya Fjallajökull? Is that getting there? So Neanderthal left very early. Big groups of them left around 300,000 years ago, and they were really, really, really successful in Europe. They did a great job there. They made weapons. These were for like stabbing, though. They were not for throwing. We'll talk about that in a second. They also made art. So this is kind of an interesting way to make art, right? Got your hand here, chewing up a bunch of pigment, and which we still have today, right? We have that air brushing kind of stuff, but there's those ones that have like with a straw. I don't know, I've seen it, air brushing. I don't want to Google it. I don't know what that's going to show up. How would I know? I don't speak Icelandic. I don't know. Maybe you know Icelandic people. I don't know. Is that, maybe you've heard about it in your news or something, and maybe that's how they try to pronounce it. This stuff, though, this is, I think, very just gorgeous, delicate art. Can you guys make out what this is? Like, what the image looks like? And this will be a time for me to take a break and drink my drink. It is Lady Earl Grey, if anyone's interested. The other one was peppermint coffee, but we're done with that. So what do we see in here? Because this is, I think, just gorgeous. Dragonflies. Okay, I can see how they might look like dragonflies. Not quite. This is actually going to lead us into, some of the first religious concepts. They are cows. Yes, they are. So this, these sharp things here, these little almost circular looking things, these are their horns. And it appears they're all drinking from some water source. And how gorgeous is that? These very thin, really delicate lines. They lived in groups. Some sort of deer or moose. Yeah, they're most likely a type of like water buffalo or pre-domestication bovine, that we would call a cow later on. So we got our groups that they're living in, and for a second I was like, wait a sec, but no, it's a rock. I thought, what is this guy reading a book for? This is not, I don't know, if he was reading a book, I was like, oh, this is not a picture of Neanderthal, maybe it's a picture of San Francisco or something, but no, he's playing with his rocks. And they also had death rituals, which is really interesting. Did Neanderthal have a concept of an afterlife, reincarnation, or a soul? Possibly, but at this time we don't know. But I think it's really cool to think about. We found a lot of really interesting stuff of theirs that indicates status and stuff, and it's a really, really amazing kind of thing. If we saw Neanderthal today, would we recognize them? We recognize one or simply ignore them as an everyday human? That is a very good question, and let's kind of go back a little bit real quick. I mean, I've seen people that look like this, okay? There are a lot of people in Europe that have a very Neanderthal kind of look to them, and we'll talk about why that is in a second. So I don't think we would recognize that they're different. We might notice they have a bit broader features in their face, for example. They're stockier, but we understand that humans come in different sizes and shapes and bone structures, so I don't think it would stick out to us as anything. So if there was some weird time travel situation where Neanderthal could zap to our time period, I don't think we would notice them, quite frankly. I mean, I'm sure maybe a doctor might, but just seeing them on the street, I mean, if you imagine her with her hair back or up, pluck some of those eyebrows, some makeup on her face, maybe a hat or something on, this is just a regular person going to the store, I don't think we would necessarily notice anything. Do we know if they had religion? That's the other question. We're not sure. We know they did understand symbols and appreciate symbols. So this is some of the recreation of some of the things that we found. So you can see this person is surrounded by flowers. So we found these flowers buried with them. Some of them had to be carried from far off. So they took care of dead bodies. Now I know you might also be thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought Neanderthal were cannibals. And that's true, but you would eat people too if you had no food, you know what I mean? It's not like they were cannibals by choice, So this is some of the stuff we found of them, And I want you guys to look at these necklaces. I guess I can make it bigger, can't I? Can I make it bigger? Come on, you. Okay, fine. Be this way. There we go. You little thing. Come on. Let's get there. Okay. Now let's just think about that for a second. How long is it going to take to make one of those necklaces? You have to make the string, you have to collect the shells, and you have to put a hole through the shells. How long is that going to take? Any guesses? Yeah, the Hippie tribe. Yeah, I know that's... I was trying to think of some joke like that, but I just decided to go with San Francisco Minnow. But yeah, your joke, good. Extra credit for you. So what do we... Like, how long would you guess this would take? 1 year? Probably less than a year. Those necklaces look placed there recently. These... Okay, so again, these are going to be like recreation. They're not going to let people... This is a display. You know what I mean? This is not like, hey guys, come touch the actual stuff, you know? So this is a recreation based on what we found. Yeah, that's a good thing to note. Just like this guy here, he's a recreation based on what we found. We're not just gonna leave this out as an exhibit. A lot of the stuff that you guys do see as exhibits, they're not gonna be the existing bones. Even if we have the bones, we tend to not put them on display most of the time. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we'll put one part of the skeleton on display, and then the rest of it is a replica. We do not. We just, they're just too precious to afford to have that happen. Like even if somebody wasn't being a jerk and like messing with them, you know, the building can catch on fire, and all of these, you know, very delicate things would be destroyed. Yeah. At least several days after getting all the shells. Yes. You can make it in a few days with old tech. That's true. However, we also have to consider the fact of time, right? Most of my day is going to be dedicated to hunting or gathering or caretaking, right? And that's the issue. So I need to not only do all of my normal stuff of hunting, gathering, and whatever, but also I'm going to take extra time out of my day to find these tiny shells. I'm going to take extra time out of my day to create a string that I'm not going to use. So I need excess material. You know what I mean? And then I have to make these little holes. And again, it's not necessarily a difficult task. It's just, if I have to make these little holes with this little sharp pin type of tool, how long is that going to take when I could be doing something else? I could be sleeping. I could be getting, you know, water. And that's what we have to consider. It's not only that they made these, it's that they did this instead of doing something else. For them to do that means they really cared about those people. You know what I mean? So it's pretty interesting. Why would they honor a body so much? And so again, that kind of goes back to Norvas's question of, you know, did they have religion? This points to a possibility they did. I don't think we can say at this time, but this definitely points in the right direction. So it's pretty cool, I think. And you can see here, it's not just these necklaces, but this guy here is also wearing a bracelet. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. And we can also see here that they are covered in shells for whatever reason. So there's a lot of shells in this area. I'm not going to guess that they were buried near the sea, because I think this would have eroded too much, perhaps, of their bones. So perhaps it was just collected. Or maybe this is an area that there just were a lot of shells here, but the water was long gone, so that could also be a possibility. But it's probably not a place near the ocean. So it's a interesting kind of thing, though, that they would take this much time, you know. And you can see too, it's not just a necklace. It's quite a long necklace, isn't it? They're looped over twice. This one's looped over 3 or 4 times, and then they also made a small bracelet. You know, that I just like to think of that. You know, what it like living at that time period, and then how long that would have taken, and putting it on this person who has probably started to stink quite a bit, right? And so you're not burying them for at least a week, and they're getting pretty ripe. But you want to make sure, even though they are super stinky, you want to make sure that at least you're sending them off into this dirt in the way that makes sense to you and your tribe, you know. So I can just kind of imagine these, maybe the children or something of this person, or the sister or brother of this person, you know, walking over to this burial site where maybe part of their body has been buried and the rest of it is covered in a way to protect against predators. Maybe it's even in the cave. We found a lot of these burials in the cave with other materials that show that they lived and cooked in the cave and also buried dead bodies in the cave. So these guys could just be in your cave, hanging out, buried up to here, and maybe you put something in front of them because it's kind of sad to see their face and stuff all the time. Maybe not. Maybe you let them watch, participate, you know, and then you just carefully put this over their body, and then you push them into the soil and cover them back up. I just think it's such a, you know, what were they thinking when they did it? And I don't know, it's a very touching, kind of beautiful thing. Jewels show a lot of wealth. You wear them to show that you have so many resources that you can waste time on this, which is true and human, right? We have to remember these are Neanderthal, and these are Neanderthal living in pre-civilization time periods. When we talk about accumulating wealth and we talk about like social statuses of just pure wealth accumulation, that's the stuff that's going to happen after the invention of agriculture, when people can settle down and they can't accumulate wealth, right? When we're living just kind of day-to-day hunter-gatherers, that's not something you're going to be doing. Nobody there is going to have the luxury of just not contributing. Do you know what I mean? There were cases that we've seen of people that were quite diseased when they died. So it seems like they were being taken care of for a while. Probably had their food chewed for them, because we found a lot of like abscess and like missing teeth and stuff in like older people that are about 50 or 60 years old. But even then they could contribute something like knowledge. Do you know what I mean? These are not, and of course, you know, elderly grandma or grandpa that's, you know, full of arthritis, because we found a lot of arthritis in their bones and their joints and stuff. They can still take care of little kids, they can cook, they're still contributing to the society. So we're not at that point of wealth accumulation just yet. Of course, yes, that's totally true about showing jewelry and those things. I can just get these resources because I can, but we're not at that time period right now. And again, you know, maybe Neanderthal had a slightly different mindset about it. If we gave Neanderthal jewels, maybe they wouldn't even think they're great, you know. That must have been very rare, going over 50. Yes, I would say so. Those are not skeletons that we tend to find a ton of. And then again, especially because they've had those arthritis kind of things going on. But it wasn't, you know, I say it because it wasn't, healed bones are some of the oldest signs of civilization. Right. But I wouldn't say civilization. I would say healed bones are some of the oldest signs of human compassion, or recognition of contribution of other means than hunting. Do you know what I mean? Civilization is like specifically you settle down, you have writing, you have religion, usually there's social classes, there's a government, there's an economy. So those are like the 7 marks of civilization, and that starts later. That starts around, again, about 10,000 years ago, 11,000 years ago, in that Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia kind of region. So but remember, this is not only something that we would necessarily see for humans or human ancestors, but we also actually see it in some animal cases. So it seems to be a marker of social animals, and if the animal in the group can still somehow contribute, even if they're injured, or if the injury is such that the other animals are able to take care of them. There's African wild dogs, for example. If one of the dogs gets injured in the pack, the other dogs will bring it food as if it's still contributing to the pack. The dog either dies or heals and then can contribute again, or it just dies. And so that's another thing to consider. This taking care of our own seems to be more of a social animals kind of thing. So did they trade things, or they're purely hunter-gatherer? I would say that all hunter-gatherers would be traders if it's available. So I would say that. As long as you're able to recognize what others have and you want it, that it would be a trade thing. But this is not like this wouldn't be a situation where they're making stuff just for trade. You know what I mean? This would be something like there's a group that's moving because the seasons changed and they're, semi-nomadic or something. And they're moving. They happen to have a lot of dried fish because they used to live near the coast or something like that. And you happen to be moving a different way and you happen to cross paths. You're coming from a place where you had a lot of this herb that you use as if you get cut. You find if you get cut and you put this herb in there, the cut heals quickly and doesn't get infected. Of course, you don't understand what infection is, but you know it's a killer once that starts stinking and you know your friends die. You put that herb in there or whatever. So you have a lot of it. It just grew there. You're just bringing it. You don't have fish and your guys are kind of hungry. Trade. But this isn't something like I collected all of these things so I could trade them. So that's how it's going to be different from like an economy. So trade will happen if it's possible. But it's not like an economy built on trade, if that makes sense. Are there any other questions? These are really great questions. Are there any other questions about this? So it is pretty interesting what we've been able to piece together about their culture. And again, especially because this has only been information we've been able to find in the last 15, 20 years. I feel really bad that I was, that I didn't get to be taught this when I was in school. The only reason I really feel bad about it is because other people my age maybe aren't staying on top of this, and so they missed out on this really beautiful addition to human history. I think it's so amazing, the stuff that we found about Neanderthal. Humans met Neanderthal, modern humans did. This is another video, which we're not watching, but I can definitely link to you guys. So not only did we meet them, we interbred. We just had lots and lots of babies. And how do we know that? Well, if you're not 100% pure African, you have between 2 and 6% Neanderthal DNA. Pretty cool. Neanderthal influenced traits, so these are just genetic things that you're more predisposed to. These two are buried together. Siblings, they could be. It also could be they just happen to die at the same time. They could be married. For some of the Neanderthal burial sites, and it's been amazing since we've been able to find more of them that I get to say some of the burial sites. Some of these burial sites are just like almost a mass grave. So it appears that there was like a section of the cave, in some caves, right, not all of them, where there was a drop off. And so you didn't live back there because it's too far back. You don't know what else is there. You're going to hurt yourself, that kind of thing. So you just kind of didn't go there really. And that's where you would put your dead. So for some of them, they weren't buried physically. They were kind of put together in another part of the cave. So those are some of the things that we found. So they are together in that way. So it's sort of a mass grave that we found, which is pretty cool. Let's see. The red line goes over Gobleky Tepe. Yes, and so Gobleky Tepe is really also super interesting. Gobleky Tepe, which, oh, well, again, I'm not your English teacher, but this is in English, so at least I don't feel too bad. So this is a really interesting site for those of you that don't know, because it appears to be a religious site that predates civilization. And again, civilization, when we use that word in history, we're talking about humans that settled down, they built a city, they have writing, they are having an economy, there's a social class, there's usually religion, and there's a government. So those 6 things are going to be making up civilization. So this is just a site. That's it. It's not like there were houses or anything. There might be. We might find them in the future. Okay. But as it stands right now, it appears to be a religious site, possibly one of those calendars. Why would you build this? And that's what's so weird. We may find that, so the Gobleky Tepe was about 12,000 years ago. And then our understanding of agriculture is about 10,000 years ago. Could we find that agriculture started earlier? Yes, we could find that. So that might be an answer to this. If we find, 10 years from now, it turns out agriculture actually started 15,000 years ago, and so this Gobleky Tepe thing, it's actually kind of close to this really, really, really old city that we didn't find until, 10 years from now. Cool. That would explain it. But as it stands right now, at this time, it's pretty weird. It's a site. At least with Stonehenge, there's a bunch of, sites of people that lived around this area. This is just like a site. Could it be a calendar? Could it be religious? Weird. And that's it. When we talk about religion, we talk about it with society, we talk about it with civilization, right? That doesn't mean that nomads didn't have religion. Nomadic tribes today have religion, they just don't express it in the same way that non-nomadic tribes do. They're not carrying around a bunch of books because you're nomads. You don't want to carry around a bunch of books. You don't have a bunch of statues that you're making because you're nomads. You're not carrying around a bunch of statues. The pre-Islamic Bedouin religion, for example, where actually Islam takes a lot of stuff from. So we talk about Islam, of course, as a Judeo source, like an Abrahamic religion, and it is. But it definitely took a lot. Like even the site of the Kaaba in Mecca, which is that big black square, and it's got the Allah stone in there, that black stone, which appears to be like a meteorite. That actually was the Bedouins. It was theirs. They were a polytheistic religion, and they had like little things. I'm trying to find something that might be around the size. Like something like this could represent a god, right? Something maybe like this size could represent one of the other gods. And this is what? Pocket-sized, isn't it? So if I'm maybe, I'm a person who gets really tired, I might have a god of energy, for example. Cool. I'm going to keep this in my pocket, right? That's the sort of thing. This Gobleky Tepe, this is like stone blocks. What would a nomadic tribe be doing with stone blocks? Why would they put these up? So that's such a weird kind of concept. Let's see. Did Neanderthal cook their foods, or were their digestive systems better adapted to eat raw meats? That is a great question. Actually, a lot of digestive systems are better with cooked meat. That goes even for like snakes and shit and stuff, you know what I mean? Like these are very like, it's very interesting, I would say, to see the amount of things that are better with cooked foods. So it's not just us. Did they have fire? Is probably the question you're asking. Did they utilize fire a lot? So for the bones that we've found that have appeared to be from cannibalized individuals, the reason that we say that we have those signs of cannibalism is because the bones appear to be boiled. So that's why. So we're able to tell when a bone has been cooked over a fire or cooked in a boiling liquid. So we've actually found both of those, bones that have been fire cooked and bones that have been boiled cooked. So not only did they use fire to cook things, but they actually had some type of container to make like soups and stews, which again, you know, learning about Neanderthal, like as a student, when I was a student, the idea that these guys are making pots and pans is mind-blowing, right? Of course, these are not going to be made out of metal and stuff. These are going to be things that are going to be easily lost to time in terms of pottery and stuff, but it's actually really, really cool. When it is ironic, when I was a kid, I was always told that these are stupid things to worship. Then I realized that we were doing the same thing. Yeah, can you guys give me an example of something that you do that you would say is a thing that you wear or carry that has a meaning to you, but perhaps if somebody were to find them, you know, some future archaeologist 50,000 years in the future, if they found them, they might be like, oh, these people are so primitive, you know. While you guys do that, I am gonna, speaking of this balm, one thing that sucks about teaching is your mouth gets very, very dry. I'm trying to think of, you know, we value symbols, you know, even if we were comparing them, I mean, the obvious direct comparison would be old religion to modern religion. You know, somebody wearing a religious necklace or something would be an obvious comparison. But even just wearing something that just makes you happy, you know. I have these earrings. One of them is a moon and one of them is a sun, and they're rose gold. And I was actually going to wear them, but I forgot to put them on. I get very happy when I see it. It's you know, it's the passing of time, and I like to wear them around like this time of the year because it's very dark outside. You know, it's this nice passage of time, and this is beautiful rose gold color, and it's nice, you know, just to have for no reason. Yeah, piercings for sure, you know, jewels and rings. Of course I do, you know, of course we are talking very directly, you know, do we still wear jewelry today? Yes, of course. I'm talking about something you might wear that is special for a reason, like a reminder or anything. So like I said, some of the stuff I wear is just so I can see it and smile. Other stuff, it depends. Like I wear stuff that has to do with colors. So certain colors I try to make associations with. So if I need extra motivation today, like if I'm going to go into a job interview or something, I wear something red. And to me, you know, that is like associated with power, with being direct, with being in charge. And so when I wear red, it's a reminder to myself, like a pat on my own back, like, or a message that I send to myself in the future, like, hey, you know, make sure you really kill it at that interview, you know, by wearing something like that. If I'm not feeling very good, I tend to like if I have a migraine or something, sometimes I'll wear blue, because blue is associated with like healing and calm. And so, you know, I remind myself, don't overextend yourself today, you know. So if I see like a blue and like a jewelry or a pin or a piece of clothing that's blue that I'm wearing, I tell myself, just calm down today, relax, don't overextend yourself. You know, it's just a reminder, you know what I mean? There's no power in the color. It's just sort of a reminder, if that makes sense. Neckties would amuse future archaeologists and probably be viewed much like Native American headdresses are viewed today. Possibly, yeah, possibly. I have a sundial somewhere that's a ring with a hole in it. You hang it from the string and the sun will make a spot on the dial. That's really cute. That's cool. Think of some of the weird clothing worn in school graduation ceremonies. That's definitely true. Yeah, I wonder what they will think we attributed to it. You know, like the moving of the tassel on the graduation cap. Will they think that And symbolically they became an adult. You know, is that how they're gonna think about it? Because that's, I mean, technically that's how it is. Like, okay, when we move the tassel over, you know, that's when you become out of school. I don't know. I don't even know which side it went to. I graduated. I just never attended a graduation. I just thought I just didn't want to. I thought they were wasting my time. I just didn't want to go. So I graduated. I just didn't attend anything. But yeah, so when we go back here, so some of these things that are affected by our Neanderthal DNA. This doesn't mean that if you don't have Neanderthal DNA, you don't get these problems. It's just you're more predisposed to it. Depression, addiction to tobacco, hypercoagulation, so like blood clots, malnutrition, I'm not sure in which way, urinary tract disorders, and this one, actinic keratosis. This is like skin cancer. So that's kind of interesting. It's a ritual thing. Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of fun. It says about 2%, but it can be up to 6%, which is kind of cool. So what happened to Neanderthal? And so again, this is another video you guys can check out. So mostly there were two major disadvantages of Neanderthal that came into play when the latest ice age came to pass. And I don't, of course, mean the movies. So with the Neanderthal, number one is they had lots and lots of muscle, and they were very high weight. And for any of you that have tried to put muscle on, as I have, you know that you gotta eat to maintain that muscle, okay? Muscle mass, their strength, was their power. That was their niche, okay? The way that they hunted was to sneak up on prey in the forest and just straight up, boom, stab that thing and wrestle it as it's dying, okay? And it's cool because if you are able to like check out like how bones react to skeletal muscle size and stuff, your bones will thicken if you are more muscular. And if you have to use your muscles a lot, the bone structure the whole structure doesn't change, but if you are someone who's able to study bones, you can tell if a person was more muscular and active versus not as muscular and not as active just by the bones. So we can actually see that the right arm was more developed and used for strength and stuff than the left arm was for most of the fossils we found. So this would indicate a stabbing with a right arm up here, having to control more with the left arm just kind of keeping hold of the spear, but the right arm's the one that's going to be trying to control the animal more as it's struggling. So it's actually pretty cool that we're able to check that out. You can't do that if you're weak, right? You gotta spend muscle to make muscle. Like you really gotta be muscular to hold down an animal as it's fighting you for its life. Of course, you know, you're going to be hunting with your buddies. It's not just you by yourself. But this is like the type of hunting, okay? And this became an issue as the Ice Age happened. So I do want to show you an Ice Age map. Yes, the muscles were very dense. Cool, this is exactly what we wanted. All right. So with our good friend Neanderthal, I wish I could draw more on the map. Neanderthal, again, was going to be in Europe. Okay, mostly Europe, up through towards Russia. Some people group Russia as Europe. Some people group it as Asia. I just tell my students Russia is like its own planet. It's its own thing. It does its own thing. It's its own land, okay? So over here out into Russia land, all right? The continent of Russia, okay? We'll just call it that. So this is pretty much where they primarily were. Now, of course, we're not getting a huge glacier coming into this region specifically, but we are getting this type of not only the glaciation, but the cold, right? So even if we're going to be living here south of that glacier, it's still going to be quite cold. We're going to be losing out on a lot of good vegetation. Because of that, we're going to be losing out on a lot of good cover. So if I'm only able to sneak up on animals in a forest because there's forest cover, and now that cover goes away, and instead we're left with these, like, I'm just trying to give an example of, like, boreal forest, winter. Oops, not well. It'll know what we're saying. I guess this is hard to look up here. Maybe not a good example. So the type of forest that they're going to have in Europe are these mixed forests that are going to look like this. Okay. You are going to get some pine trees, or these evergreen trees here, and you can see them, but you're also going to get these trees that do fall apart during the winter time. Okay, so it's already going to be difficult to hunt. So what, of course, is going to be your natural sort of reaction to this? Great. Is you're going to go south, all right? But as we're going south, we're going to get into areas that are more open. There's more of an open plains sort of region. We're getting into areas where we're not really familiar with hunting, okay? So what is our option now as we're getting these wider areas? There's not as much tree cover. Our other option now is to take those spears and launch them, except you can't, right? There's a big difference between a heavy spear with a heavy point on it that I can stab into this animal and fight with, right? There's a huge difference between that and something lightweight that I can throw, okay? On top of that, some of the really great complete skeletons we found show that there was a difference between the inner ear bone, and I'm sure that most of you know the inner ear is for balance and agility. So not only am I at a disadvantage because I'm shorter, so I can't see as far, and I'm losing out on my strength, which is like my big thing, and that's how I'm used to hunting anyway. Now I have to deal with, I got to invent a new type of spear, or with my new friends, the Homo sapiens, they can at least show me how to use the spear or something. But you're just gonna suck at throwing it, you know? And I guess when we think about it, it sort of makes sense. If you think about like Olympic athletes, where are the people that have the best agility type of athletes for speed and for jumping and everything? Those are going to be places that come from more like Homo sapien pure DNA, which is the more like African type of regions in the African diaspora. Those are people that are African people, but outside of Africa. The people that are going to be doing stuff that requires a lot of strength, those are going to be people coming usually from places like Northern Europe and Russia land, okay? Those are places that have that more of that Neanderthal DNA, all right? That doesn't mean that people from Africa can't lift weights, and that doesn't mean that people from, Norway can't run very well. It just means when we're talking like that high level Olympic stuff, or that stuff where it's like life and death, these little bitty things are going to make that difference. Ron Perlman looks like a Neanderthal to me, says the atheists. And for those of you who do not know Ron Perlman, we would all agree once we see him, right? For all we know, he could be a Neanderthal that got sent forward in time somehow. But I mean, look at this guy. This guy, that's a Neanderthal, right? He's got that nose, he's got that heavy brow, he's got that thick, chin. The only thing that I would say is not Neanderthal-y about him is probably just his height, I would say. That would be the big deal there. All right. So modern humans, again, they're just better at throwing stuff. And then, of course, with dogs. Dogs are a good time. Humans, domesticated dogs, or wolves, as far as we know at this time, Neanderthal did not. Whether they had pets is a different story. They may have had other types of pets, but as far as like hunting dogs, no, they didn't. So that is, at least not that we know right now. This guy over here, he's using an interesting type of spear. It's a type of spear launcher. So it's a thing that you hold, and it has like a little divot, and you set the spear there, and you actually use it to launch the spear, which is pretty cool. And that is where we end. Okay, Hellboy, yes, exactly, Hellboy. This is a bit longer than some of my classes, but honestly not too much longer. Yeah, so I would say overall, good job, had fun. any questions about this before we are done. And I'm seeing myself on this live stream thing. Let's see. What a technology. I know. Isn't that cool? Yeah, the Atlatl. Is that what you're talking about? There we are. Great. This guy is pretty cool. But yeah, again, what technology, you know? So these are probably not what the early humans called it, but this is the type of thing here. It's, I mean, again, you know, that shows a lot of like good planning and stuff, but we kind of would expect that from Homo sapiens, you know. All right, thank you for doing this. Well, thank you for joining me, for sure. You know, hopefully as the channel starts to grow itself again, hopefully this will we'll have like more younger people asking questions. I think it's good to have them ask questions. I loved your guys' questions, by the way. I think they're great. I just think for younger people, they have a bit of a different perspective. So I want to make sure to get that in there as well. Does anybody have any qualms with the idea of starting with the Apocrypha, in terms of starting with like religious texts? Because I just wanted to do that, and I think it'd be fun. So if anybody has any comments about that, let me know. And I'm leaving the monetization off. I don't know if you guys, when you click this, I hope an ad didn't show up. It shouldn't have. They should not be monetized. So the monetization for these videos, it's just going to be like Patreon. So that's it. So I think all of you are following me on Patreon anyway, so I don't need to let you know to follow me on Patreon. But for anybody watching this in the future, you guys are definitely welcome to do that. But that's all we got. And I do thank you for joining us. But let me know, I guess, afterwards or in the comment section of this video, if you guys are interested in the Apocrypha, or if anybody would just be like, oh, I'd much rather start with a different text. Let me know. I think the Apocrypha is fun, good, no ads. Okay, great. That's exactly what I wanted to know. The Apocrypha is fun. It lets us kind of see things from a different sort of perspective. Learning new subjects, cool. If you guys have any subjects you want to cover, let me know. The subjects that I'm comfortable with covering are going to be things like history, geography, psychology, religion, military stuff to an extent, mostly like, oh, what was life like in the Marines? Religion and atheism, I don't know if we mentioned that. We can talk about some stuff, like some things with politics, but more in the context of this is how it's been in the history thing, and here's how it's replaying now, or here's what we can maybe likely expect from how a similar situation has played out in history, as opposed to having a political discussion. And we can touch on things like biology or something, but you guys might be better with, you know, asking somebody who has a heavier background in that sort of thing. I'm okay with you guys asking me some subjects that do overlap, some biology stuff that might overlap here. We did talk a little bit about like the Tasmanian tiger and how it's related more to marsupials and stuff, but beyond something like that, it's going to be out of my area of expertise. So, you know, I'll let you know if I'm not able to. Sorry, Ratsa had said, sorry I missed it, can you start over from the beginning? Yes, you can, by pressing play and watching this again. Alright guys, let me know what you think. I wonder if, you know, future classes will probably be about this length or shorter, but hopefully this is more interesting than something that you would have had if you just would have read the text that this was based on. So, alrighty. I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.